Your future has been cancelled. But by whom? And why? It's difficult to answer those questions. But first I've got to convince you that your future has been cancelled, because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, here we go, interesting title. But of course my future hasn't been cancelled. You will have a future. You will wake up tomorrow and the next day and the next day until you don't. That is a kind of future. But it's a future that a lot of people don't believe in anymore, are anxious about, are worried about, are concerned about. They don't really know where they're going. Culture doesn't have any idea anymore where it's going, because there is no investment in the future as such culturally. We don't really believe in tomorrow. We believe in yesterday. We believe in the past. We recycle the past because the future doesn't exist anymore, politically, culturally, personally. And I'm going to try and explain why I think that's the case. See if I can convince you, because this was your future and my future, my children's future, that was taken away from them. It wasn't taken away from them as part of some form of revolution or as some kind of strict plan, if you like. There's no conspiracy here. Their future was eroded. It's been eroded over time. So what do I mean by that? Well, for a long time now, probably, at least 200 or 300 years, certainly since the Industrial Revolution, and particularly since the Second World War, there was this idea that tomorrow would be better. And almost the whole political system and the cultural system was based upon the idea that we were building futures. We were building a tomorrow. That things of the future, things that were progressive, shall we use that word? I know it's a shocking word to use, isn't it, these days? This idea of progression, moving forward, this was at the heart of pretty much everything that we did, public policy, and it was reflected in the culture and the art, sort of trying to kind of make a blueprint for what was to come. It's all gone. So we built, after the war, we built welfare states, which are being dismantled now, of course. We built public universities and educational establishments, which are being dismantled now. And I'm not saying this in a sort of, this isn't metaphorical. They are literally being destroyed. They're either being destroyed quite literally, as is what's happening in the States, insofar as their funding and their purpose is being reduced and questioned, and that typically of a extreme regime, they're being told what they should and shouldn't teach. Those values must reflect the values of the state, which is a little bit weird, but there you go. We had the United Nations, and we had sort of large-scale housing projects. We kind of tried to understand what people needed from life. And we had a promised future, didn't we, of hover boots and flying cars, computers doing all of the work, automated domestic household robots, that kind of thing. We had these sort of musical revolutions that would come every few years, which kind of looked forward. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about the sort of 60s psychedelia, punk movements, electronica, bands like Kraftwerk, and Joy Division, many others, of course, you know, take your pick, but somehow they were carving a kind of future. And this is how culture should be. It's what about politics should be. We were breaking boundaries in all sorts of ways. And of course we were breaking boundaries in science as well, that kind of thing. So there was this idea, what I'm trying to say is there was this idea that we were looking forwards and that the future was going to be richer, it was going to be improved, it was going to be a future that was built in our own image, if you like. And because we had this idea of the future, we had a shared horizon. We all kind of looked forward and we saw that same horizon. We weren't quite sure what was on it, but we know we were heading in that direction. And we knew that when we eventually kind of reached the horizon, even though, of course, you never reach the horizon, but if you like, we knew that there was this idea that in that place, things would be fairer, better, smarter. It's all gone. All of that optimism, maybe you weren't even born in this time of optimism if you were only born recently, but all that optimism has completely disappeared. And we've done it to ourselves to a certain extent. We've destroyed it. We've hollowed out all of those things. And now we don't, it's not that we don't appreciate that kind of thinking anymore. We've basically outlawed it to some extent. We've outlawed it. Sorry, I'm distracted by a dog. Where we used to be inspired, we're now stuck. And what do we do with this stuckness? Well, we look to the past, don't we? We look to the past for salvation now, not the future, because we know there is no future. Nobody knows what tomorrow is going to bring. All of the things that the rail tracks that we were on have simply melted in the heat of these new political movements and also the sort of crumbling mess of the last 30 years as well, where there's been huge amounts of mismanagement. Life is a series of crises. We must expect crises, but it's how we manage those crises that's the important thing. So we are now haunted by the ghosts of a future that we were promised that never came. And now there's no sign of it at all. It's all turned into steam. And so we live with the ghosts of the past. It's all about retro. It's all about recycling. It's all about looking back into the past and trying to take the bits that we kind of liked, the beautiful architecture and sort of, you know, the comforting old black and white films and, you know, the sort of superhero comics of the 20s and 30s and sort of trying to reanimate the spark of that in order to at least give us something in the present. This hasn't happened overnight. This has been eroded over time. No wonder we're all nostalgic. No wonder we all sit there and sort of think about the past. But we're not thinking about the past, I don't think, with rose-tinted glasses. That would be ridiculous. But we're thinking about the past as a time when we believed in the future. That's the key. And the problem is that these politicians, the MAGA movement, the European fascists, like the Reform Party, they believe in a mythical past. They've got no belief whatsoever in tomorrow. They couldn't give a damn about the future. They believe in a sort of mythical idea. Make America great again. Well, it doesn't really take much analysis, does it? I mean, it was only in 1960 when that girl, Judy Bridges was her name. She was a 6-year-old girl in 1960. And she was the first black girl to go to this college. And such was the animosity, the shock of the black girl going to college in 1960 that she was escorted to that college by 6 federal marshals. 1960, a 6-year-old black girl. Demonstrations outside the college by the white folk. And then we all know about Rosa Parks just 5 years earlier. Not long ago at all. Who refused to give up her seat, as was required, to a white person on a bus. So that isn't really what we want to go back to, is it? I mean, if you want to go, if that's what you want to go back to, fair enough. I'm not going to get involved in a great debate with people like that. But I'm hoping that most people realise that that isn't something that we want to see again. Surely. Same in the UK. And the Reform Party. They've got no idea about tomorrow. They have no policies. They have no ideas. So as I said, it's a slow erosion of your future. How it's come about, I guess there are cycles. So there are natural cycles of movements. So it could be just a sort of end of the era. But it could equally be a perfect storm of events. And of course, one of the important events is the digital revolution that's taken place in front of our very eyes. Do you remember when the internet was full of promises for tomorrow? Do you remember that first email? Do you remember how amazing you thought that was? That you could send an email to a friend. And then those first clumsy web pages where you could get sort of information. There was this idea that there would be these free voices somehow on there. But that they would have kind of some value to them. There would be, connections. Whereas now we know that everybody's connected, but nobody gives a damn. Nobody has any friends anymore. People aren't having sex anymore. If you are, good luck to you. But it seems to be the way things are going because we're becoming so insular. We're now in little bell jars. We don't even know we're alive. We're on our phone and we're driving prams into bins. I told you that in a previous video. The internet promised the world. People were a bit cynical at first, but soon realised that this was amazing. It has become a wasteland. It's destroyed itself already. It's only been around for 20 years. And it's already just a sort of crumbling. You see the smoke, and the broken edifices and the statues that have fallen, and crumbled into the dust. Look upon my empire. Be amazed. It's Ozymandias. It's Ozymandias, the broken statue that asks the people to look upon the mighty empire, but the statue is broken, fallen into the dust. Come on, you know that. You know it's just a bunch of noise. I was telling you, wasn't I, in a previous video about my own trudging through the wasteland because there's nowhere else to go. What I saw there, the tragedy, you know, it's people who are raging, people who know nothing about anything, claiming to be experts. Nothing wrong with that, except for the fact there's some sort of visceral response in people who watch these things and then believe them. There's no direction. Imagine 1 billion people like me talking into a phone without any direction, with no sense, no cultural shared experience. So we're not going anywhere. It's just a fire that's going to burn out, or it has burnt out. I mean, think about think about 3 kind of the most popular internet gurus with 10, 20, 30 million followers, bigger than Belgium. Tucker Carlson. A nostalgic man, full of fear and paranoid about the future. Future terrible, nostalgia good. Be a bit scared. Andrew Tate, macho fantasy. Recycled macho fantasy of the past. In a Bugatti. What's he got to do with the future? Nothing. Jordan Peterson. Well, he's selling the traditional family life kind of thing that never really existed, by the way. And it's sold as wisdom. The past sold as wisdom, a kind of, it's a trap. But enough said about Peterson. None of this has got anything to do with the future, your future, my future. It's just a weapon that they have to make money and weaponizing your resentments. Reinvigorating those stories and myths about life that are just completely untrue. Nostalgia plus outrage equals money. It's all absolute nonsense. So I'm afraid that all around us in the air are the ghosts that haunt us of the lost possibilities of our time on earth. Were they stolen? Or did they erode naturally due to the circumstances I've sort of outlined, which were my ideas? But don't believe in any mythical pasts. I'm afraid there were no golden ages that ever existed. We're trapped. We're trapped in an echo chamber. We're haunted now, not only by our lost future, but also by an idea that there was something wonderful before, because we can't now envisage something wonderful to come. Well, I'm going to talk more about the wasteland in a minute, but of course, we don't have to buy into any of this and then we're free. But it's very difficult because then we have to overcome a sense of alienation, sense of being an outsider, which is very difficult. Of course, I think it's very liberating to be like that, but I think it takes a lot of hard work and you have to go through quite a bit of pain. But I was heartened today. I went to the city marathon. I think there were 20,000 people running. And there were people of all ages, young and old. of course, all sizes and shapes, different levels of fitness. 20,000 in a fairly small city like this. And it was good to watch them go by. There were no mobile phones in sight. There was no bullshit. There was just, people challenging themselves. And just gave a little glimmer that we are hopefully stronger than the forces that are determined to persuade us that we have no future.